Hello guys, and welcome to Strategic Command, World War II, World at War, with our first Allied playthrough here. In the last episode, we saw some pretty heavy fighting over in China. The Japanese keep trying to push, though they're not having a lot of luck, which is good, and I'm getting a little ballsier as a result. Over in Europe, the Germans have started commencing plenty of air raids, but they're not the only ones. Looking at America, I highly doubt that we researched indie tech this quickly, so I'm going to guess they already started with a level of indie tech. So I'm going to say we go ahead and research another level of it. It's pretty expensive, but the sooner we get it, the more benefit it will give us. And a lot of the major powers actually share technology with each other. So when one has it, they share it, and then that makes progress go faster. So might as well start working on something like that. We don't really have the points to do anything with India right now that would be particularly helpful. Mainly still just using them as a way to feed more points into the UK, but they are currently researching things and earning a fair bit for themselves, even with all the points that they're throwing into the UK. So let's go look at France, who currently just spent 60 or 50 to get a Spanish Republican volunteer force going of engineers, which has yet to pop out, but we'll get to that. So we have now these two armies on the border, on the border of Maginot, I guess. We're going to reinforce them. We got to get them up to snuff. Unfortunately, we cannot get them maxed currently. Their readiness and morale is very low. I believe they were the subject of intense air raiding just like moments ago. God, I'm realizing, holy shit, this mine, which I strat bombed last turn, it's just begging for someone to move forward and step on it. But simultaneously, the Germans have fortifications just behind it. This is a mistake I feel an AI would make, is stepping on this, but you know, I can't give up the Maginot entrenchments or risk anyone's life to move forward to capture this mine while the Germans are so goddamn healthy. We gotta wait for them to be on the move and not behind their own entrenchments, which will be when they potentially, I don't think it's guaranteed that they declare war on all three of these, but there's probably a pretty good chance that they declare war on all three of these. The most important one that we can note, however, of course, is Belgium. Belgium is the one that's going to lead them directly into the BEF. So that's when we're going to see a lot of fighting. The Belgians are probably going to get slaughtered, and that is going to be unfortunate. The Brits have a lot of stuff going on for them, but let's take a look at the French Navy first. Alright, so we have repaired everything that needs to be repaired. I don't think there's any upgrades, and if there are, it won't show because we don't have any points anyway. So let's take the French fleet now and let's get this bitch moving, why don't we? I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna take these two battleships, holy crap. Put them on cruise mode, and I don't know if they can actually technically go into an ally's port, but let's do it like that. Let's set sail, send them into the Malta ports, the two battleships, because when you're in port, you have an amount of defenses that you wouldn't have otherwise. And in front of them, we'll put the destroyer. We'll go ahead and we'll put the light cruiser. And we'll go ahead and we'll put the submarine. This is where the French fleet's going to be hanging out and staying out of as they get ready to engage potentially the Italian fleet, which is, it's big. It's big. They got a lot of big ships. 5 ships here might not be enough, but I don't think it's going to be all we have anyway. Yeah, no, we get 3 more ships, so it looks like another battleship, destroyer, heavy cruiser, and this is probably all before Italy joins the war anyway. So we just pour those things all into one spot, and then hopefully the French can take care of the Mediterranean themselves, while the Brits focus everything up here. In the meantime, that's everything for France. Alright, so let's take this submarine, which we're going to test with this submarine. We're going to test to see if we can repair a submarine like this at a friendly port. So I'm going to send this up to Marseille. And we can't reinforce right now, but we'll be able to test it next turn and see. If we can't, oh well, we'll sail up to the UK. A turn or two was lost, but really nothing crazy important. We are... where we have an interesting situation forming here. Alright, so let's take this carrier group and send it up north here. A pretty hospitable, friendly location. Generally, I'd say. I'm going to take this Mohawk destroyer and I'm actually going to move it more like, let's say, down here as a bit of a screen, let's say. This light cruiser will move up to this center point. This battleship will actually stay... no, we'll go move it in front of the carrier. That works for me. So we got 3 carriers right here in a very interesting location. I might technically have a way to reach them open, but you have to go through... You'd have to go through so many hoops to actually pull that off. I don't think we need to worry. The UK is still sitting on over 300 MPPs right now. We definitely want to get those working for us. Now, a lot of the warfare upgrades here for morale, these are like one-offs, and they're pretty cheap. So we could definitely, hopefully, yeah, get some upgrades there. So I'm going to go ahead and get the infantry warfare upgrade, start researching it anyway, because that could be important as the UK. We seem to have a lot of infantry, and if we look at what the UK is going to be getting, there's a lot of infantry here. There's not a lot of tanks coming up. I could purchase tanks myself, but I'm judging on what we're going to get for free right now because of, I don't know, the method of investment. We can, in fact, now max out both of the other units that are in Egypt now that I've upgraded this HQ. Turns out that was everything I needed to do, and this is a corps here and an army here, and they're they're upgraded. That's not with weapons, that's just with doctrine, so that could be good, that could be bad. We can upgrade this HQ to 5, and only 5, and I'm gonna guess that's because, yeah, the supply over here is not the hottest, so we'll get that up about as high as we can get it up, and we'll check back here later. There's not much else we can really do here for right now. If anyone's gonna come at us, oh, they already own all of Ethiopia from the start here, so they could come up from any which way direction that they really want. That's okay. I don't really plan on concerning myself too much with our units that are down here in South Africa. They could be handy for defense elsewhere, but the problem is they don't actually have a rail line that connects them up there. So actually moving them would be no small feat without transports, and even then we'd probably want long-range transports. I'm not sure. Regular ones might be fine now that I think about it. They wouldn't have to go excruciatingly far to get up to a rail line, one that would border the Italians in Africa. Okay, well, I'm thinking about it. I don't really know how viable this is going to be, but I can upgrade the anti-air in Malta with mobility and AA defense. AA defense sounds very smart for it. Mobility, not so much, because it's not going to be moving around. It's on Malta, but I will give it the AA defense. That does seem like a smart idea. After all, this could be under attack quite frequently in the future. The supply down here in South Africa isn't even necessarily good enough to utilize, but South Africa could be way more useful to us way sooner than, say, Australia and New Zealand, just due to the distance, even though it has spawned the Expedition Force Corps, in terms of New Zealand anyway. I don't know if Australia spawned anything like that. I certainly don't see that they have. Maybe it automatically spawns some later, I don't know. But South Africa, due to Italy's inclusion, will be far more useful far sooner, so I think I will go ahead and reinforce their units down here as much as I can, using a good chunk of the rest of my MPPs from the UK. Not all of them, however, we will take a look at the rest of that later. So, as per usual, that puts us over in China to end our turn. So they are still trying to push me over here, and in fact, it looks like they're moving their units. I see way more units over here than I saw prior. Maybe some, yeah, they've definitely operationally moved stuff all over the place, but I see less up here as well, which is very interesting. So let's go ahead and reinforce this army back to max. It's just taking a absolute beating, but there's not very much I can do for it. We're also going to reinforce these poor Chinese fighters, also taking quite a beating. Anyone on the front line that's taken injury, we will reinforce. They are starting to gain experience even with me reinforcing, just due to, well, surviving. There are these opportunities where we could, for example, if we get lucky, kill 2 or kill 3 and only lose 2. The thing is, that could weaken our front a whole lot. Now imagine, this is what I'm imagining. We kill 3, right? And only lose 2. But then they attack anyway next turn, killing just 1. We're down to 7. They move that away, move in another army, attack, and then they can deal another, let's say, 3 damage. You know, maybe we're down to 4 or even 3. And then they move, like, they shift in another one, because that's something you can do. And then attack again, and then this unit's almost entirely wiped out. We've created a weak front in our line. They could totally try that. Right now, they're grinding away at the Chinese without accomplishing anything. So I'm afraid to upset the status quo as things stand. However, down here, I definitely see a status quo worth upsetting. Now that they've just left an HQ out here, just sitting here. Well, I'm just gonna say we might as well take the core. We just moved down here, even though it's not the most readied one. The others are entrenched. We're gonna move this forward and just say hello to that HQ. Unfortunately, because it's entrenched, it's only 1-to-1, which is a little sad, but actually it worked out pretty well for us. We killed 2 and lost nothing. That could not have gone better for us, to be honest. So now I see a good opportunity to start moving this force forward as it's getting its readiness and morale up. I'm not really feeling moving anything else up from their defensive positions, because we still need to hold the line. That is very much a thing. But now this HQ's in a bit of a dangerous position. Unless it can escape up to the northeast, it can now not have anyone go in front of it. It would have to run south and maybe have the army try to cut it off. Either way, it's in a bit more dangerous of a position. And boy, wouldn't it be great to push them out of the south here, maybe slowly curve up on them from the south altogether. That would be neat, though I'm not holding out hope. Looking at the research China can do, China is a country that's really going to have to work on research. Things like infantry weapons, because they rely so heavily on infantry warfare for the same reason, mobility, because their infrastructure sucks and it's hard to get around. All these kinds of things, especially infantry is the most important thing for them, without a doubt. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. We're going to put some points into researching infantry weapons for China, because that's going to be game changing for them. Unfortunately, we cannot afford infantry warfare right now as we are researching this, and there's nothing at 100 that I necessarily see as worth it. Something I think the remaining points going into could help us with tremendously would be if we purchased an anti-air. It would not arrive until March, so who actually knows? It would not arrive until March 7th, around which time we would be receiving... Oh god, never mind, that's in 41. Ha, I thought that was in 40. Okay, so this is showing every year. I thought this was like a year at a time. Okay, so they're not actually going to be receiving too many free units coming up. Okay, so what we have is what we have. We have to buy more, or we have to just not lose anything. Okay, so this is everything. Oh my. Okay, but I still think my point stands. If this is everything China's going to be getting, it needs anti-air. I know there will probably be an event for the Flying Tigers later on, so the anti-air might not be too vital, but in terms of infantry, we vastly outnumber the Japanese. If we just hold our ground instead of pushing wildly so that we can use our massive MPP advantage to get upgrades that make us equivalent to them, you know, we just beat them that way, getting anti-air could be very helpful. I also don't remember when the Flying Tigers arrive, and I don't know if there will be enough. Having anti-air that I can place, you know, at least one, there's a cap of 2, would be fantastic. Right now, we're taking so much constant flack and problems from the enemy Japanese air, which is why I really think this could help us. And we have no shortage of other manpower, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to get our first of, I guess, a max of 2 for now, or maybe overall, anti-air unit for China. So there you go. The first is purchased, and now we can still get one more later. But, I mean, you know, it might really be handy. After all, I think, yeah, anti-air is way cheaper than actually getting new fighters. 250 versus, where was the anti-air? 100. With discounts, it's 237 versus 95 right now or something. But still, point stands. That's pretty fucking crazy. But with that being said, I think we're good to end our turn. So let's go ahead and do that. And see what the Axis have planned for me. France raises a unit of engineers to improve its fortifications. There it is. There she is. USSR is expelled from the League of Nations following its attack on Finland. Oh no. Down to 19% mobilization. Oops. That's going to hurt its MPP gain. But it'll have some good bonuses later on. That's for sure. UK is just swimming in it, man. Imagine if I retained all this for India, but I think it's still, I think it's way more handy to have MPPs in the hand of the UK than India. Having India generate them is so important. So I'm so glad that they can generate so much of it. India doesn't have very high caps for what it can produce. That's for sure. Let's see. Ooh, I was zoomed out when we started this one. So it looks like I shouldn't do that. Because it looks like it just kind of... Okay, scrolling constantly has allowed me to zoom in. They're doing constant air raids right now. It doesn't look like they're actually accomplishing much. Oh! Oh! Enemy German surface fleet took the bait. Even fight by the looks of it. Their Japanese air is still going crazy. They are performing some land attacks, getting a kill. More land attacks. It's a little back and forth. It's a little more even than it's been recently. Yeah, pretty even overall, I'd say. We're definitely holding the line pretty well. I definitely heard them operating some planes. German paratroopers deploy at Hamburg. That's not good. We're disrupting their convoys. They're not disrupting ours anymore. The IRA attacks Dublin's Phoenix Park Magazine Fort? What? Why? Alright. German paratroopers deploy at Hamburg. That'll be interesting. Thousands of Polish soldiers who have escaped from Poland are arriving in France as they wish to carry on the struggle against Germany. Just as we formed a Polish army in France in 1918, the new Polish Prime Minister, can't read that name, asked that we do the same again today. He therefore asked permission to form the Polish First Corps on our soil. It will cost us 50 MPPs at 25 for 2 turns to help create and train this new Polish Corps, and it will be formed near Paris. There's no notes. 50 MPPs for a corps, that's fantastic, especially an extra one in France, where we're going to need every able body we can get. So yeah, I'll take that. And China is getting a new army. Ooh, armies are strong. Armies are good. Looking at America, I think I'm just going to go a little bit more into technology for the time being. They're not going to really be forced into the war until 41, so with that in mind, we're just going to prepare them for it. I'm going to put some points into production technology to make producing troops for them cheaper, because if they produce this many points already, imagine the amount of troops we could produce later with as much Indian production tech as we possibly can. It could be absolutely incredible, potentially. I was looking at what to do with India for this turn, and I saw they have a much different list of diplomatic targets that they can go for than anybody else. So I was looking at who isn't already kind of leaning towards somebody else in general, and trying to figure out who we could use them on, and a couple of names caught my attention, primarily Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan. Now these places are nothing important right now, but Saudi Arabia is pretty well placed over here to kind of provide some sort of difference in the war. If any of them joined, their points would go to India, and India could then get more units, and that would be pretty helpful. More units that India could make out of their miners would be fantastic. Saudi Arabia could really help change the balance of things over in Africa, whereas Afghanistan could help fortify India a little bit more, a little bit better over here, especially looking towards the USSR, but definitely provide troops that could be shifted around should the Japanese ever make it this far. But, you know, hopefully they couldn't. But in, you know, a desire to continue testing out the diplomacy and the way it works in this game, I think I'm going to take India. They have 2 chits, just like China had 2 chits. And we are going to put them into, let's just put everything into Afghanistan for right now. Spend all the MPPs right now, 10% chance per turn of getting movement in Afghanistan towards India. And then hopefully we can get them, and hopefully it doesn't take most of the game. And then hopefully we can also go for someone else like Saudi Arabia and put them under India's control as well. Because we could have a long-term strategy here where I start pumping out some armies and stuff. And I was going to potentially save up for that, but I figure might as well get the diplomacy working sooner rather than later. There's also Thailand to think about, but historically, Thailand joins Japan, so I don't know if I want to waste chits on that. I don't know how the events are going to handle it. So I'm going to go for things that I feel like might be more helpful and less threatening or, you know, just dangerous to do. Now, for the Soviets, they actually just got an engineer unit. I'm looking at where I might be able to potentially place them to make some quick fortifications that could be handy for holding out against the Soviets. Assuming that they're going to push pretty far and it's going to go west to east, I believe we'll have the historical annexations of the Baltics to help bolster us as well. But we got to think west to east, west to east. So up here, there's a lot of marsh and forest that would make pushing through hard, but this plain is something that particularly concerns me. These southern and northern areas around Ukraine and Belarus specifically. So I think I'm going to deploy the engineer right here, and then we're going to have him make a very minor fortification just facing these 2 western hexes, because we'll leave the corps that are here to defend these towns next door and put something else here to hold this, ideally, and maybe kind of form a line kind of going down, taking advantage of the existence of this giant forested marsh, while just trying to plug in the gaps where there could be a lot of movement. That's my idea. We know the USSR is going to rely a lot on infantry, so we might as well go and get them researching infantry warfare. I do also want to get them some logistics as well, because I have a feeling operational movement will be vital in defending the USSR, and I do wonder, so the USSR is going to get, this many free units. It's not as much as it seems, but they will also get those event free units over here, but I have a good feeling all of those are going to die, like, pretty quickly. So it's time to look at France. We got the engineer, and you know what? I think I know exactly what to do with him, and this might be dumb, but I feel like it'll be smart. We're going to operate him, otherwise he'll never reach the front line in time. I don't think we need to worry about fallback position. Since I'm putting so many armies at the Maginot, I don't think the Maginot will fall so long as I play it defensively. The real difficult part, as we know, is going to be up in Belgium. And as I pointed out, Dunkirk is an incredibly terrible location to defend, right? Which means it's this great point right next to us that's just open. And if this line were to collapse in any way from the north, that means the Germans could immediately rush down towards Amiens and Le Havre here, and it's just way open. But what say we operate an engineer over there and make a fortification? I don't know if it needs to be 2 sides or just one. Either way, we rush a quick fortification facing this way, and even if it's just the engineer sitting on it, you know, that could be incredibly handy. Don't you think? Well, beyond that, we will go ahead and reinforce this army that has now made it to the front. This one is finally ready to swap. Let me show you. So I hold shift and I click, and I can swap units back and forth without losing all my entrenchment. You only lose 1 entrenchment point. So it's totally worth doing this. The army is worth so much more up here than a corps, and now I can redirect this corps to do other things. I can have the corps literally just stay back here as an extra defensive line, which I'm not going to fucking do that. Or I could have the corps redeployed somewhere else. For example, maybe the corps could go help against Italy. Maybe the corps could go help up in the north. I actually don't know. If I think about where I want to move the 2 cores that we are basically about to free up, I think I want them up by Belgium. One can go right here on this hill, and one can go where we are going to set up these fortifications. In my eyes, that would be the smartest thing we could do with these cores, because then we have this full, neat line that we can hopefully even push forward or use to hold, ideally, right? Like, not even, like not lose, basically. I don't know that we would really need much in dealing with Italy. Just max out these 2 cores and then cross our fingers and hope for the best, right? Because Italy didn't accomplish much in real life, and theoretically they would be similarly inefficient in here. But even if they saw some success, there's not much other place to stage any troops or anything. Marseille is just an amazing spot all by itself. Maybe a core for reinforcement just behind, but maybe that's what we can do with the Polish corps once they're up to snuff. But Italy would join after Belgium's already been invaded, so I'm gonna try to think of that first. Even though we might just operate to get up there, we're gonna go ahead and move you 1 tile back just for the hell of it, you know, just because. Now, with the rest of France's points, we need to put them to use. Let's go ahead and pour most of them into getting this fighter back up to snuff, because we need all the fighter escort we have here. This HQ is still not maxed, so we're going to go ahead and max that out. We only have 19 points remaining. We haven't even bothered with these TAC bombers at all. And then there's all these other cores that need some attention as well. Ugh, this is rough. I want to purchase things with them as well, but like AA, I think would be so useful for them. But I'm just using the British planes instead. And, God, I certainly hope this is enough troops. It probably isn't. It probably isn't. It's probably not going to be enough at all. But we'll just have to make it work, don't we? No matter what happens, we'll just have to make it work. We have 19 MPPs remaining. Well, how do we want to spend it? That's enough to get 1 more core up to snuff. So let's go ahead and get the one up in the north. That's the most important one, I think. Up to 10. And that's gonna be it for France. Actually, no, it's not, because France has a destroyer and a battleship that they can deploy. The Dunkirk battleship and a Jaguar destroyer. And they're spawning only in very specific locations. All right, well, I guess I'll spawn you in your respective ports. This is where they were created, and I'll have you moved to where the rest of the fleet is for sure, starting next turn once you can actually move. And then with that, I think it's time to look at the UK. Starting with which, let's go ahead and reinforce their coastal command fighters here. We can rename all this stuff, by the way. I just have no idea what to do with the names. If you guys have name suggestions, I guess let me know. But I'll probably wait for someone to do something stand out to give some names in the meantime. Now, looking at my UK fleet, I looked and I confirmed that as of right now, we don't have long enough range aerial stuff to really go very far. So we literally have a 4 hex limit of how far air can reach here. 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know. And yeah, but Netherlands is in the way here. We know if the Germans are going to get into France, they're going to come through Belgium. That's where they're going to come from. So I want to be set up for that, and also for defending around Paris. So what I'm going to do, actually, is... Wait, what do you have? You have some kind of upgrade. It's to your attack values. You have advanced fighters, yeah. We can upgrade these ships, but I want to place the carriers kind of along the coast here. Pressed up, even though I literally said this was dangerous and I probably shouldn't do it. Because that's how we're going to make the most use out of this. For example, if I put this already upgraded glorious carrier right here, it can reach all the way to the border of Belgium. So once the Germans actually break in, we would be able to provide air support. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing if I put one right here. This one might be a little too far. But I'm thinking I might get those advanced air upgrades for my carriers while I still have the time to. We also have some submarines that we need to reinforce. So let's go ahead and put our carriers in port where next turn we'll be able to upgrade them. We should still have time before the Germans decide to invade, but the time is probably random based on how everything has been going so far. We must also take note that a German heavy cruiser has shown up, and given that we have absolute dominance here, we need to kill it. So, I'm going to assume the best thing to take on a heavy cruiser is probably going to be a battleship. And I think you have to be pressed up against an enemy to attack it. So let's do that. Let's move forward. Oh yeah. Let's put these battleships to work. Whew! So we took 1 damage and we dealt like 3. It's down to 2 and it's fleeing. So it's not having the happiest day. Let's go ahead and move up the Valiant battleship and try and finish this bitch off. Ooh, that gave me a 474 national morale bonus. I don't know if that's to my national morale or it's a reduction to the enemies, but only minor damage on the carriers or the battleships, and we wiped out an entire heavy cruiser, which does appear to have some lasting national morale effects. Good to know. Well, it's safe to say that the Norfolk heavy cruiser here definitely needs to go heal, so we're gonna go put that in port, let's say over to the north here in Scotland. I believe that's what that is. The battleships can start moving to port as well. They can't make it the whole way there, but they can start moving. And then we can send them a little escort of sorts. Just in case. You never know what's going to pop out. Are you still in raider mode? You don't need to be in raider mode. Neither do you. Jesus Christ, I left so many of these guys in raider mode, apparently. We'll reorganize. We have placed over here a teensy-weensy bit. Move this battleship back a space. Move this battle cruiser back a space. That seems good to me. And it also appears to me that we have run out of time this episode. I didn't expect this turn to be so much longer than the last one, but that's how it is. Well, with the next episode, we will pick up where we left off. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode so far. I hope you've approved of my noobish military strategy so far. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.